Hello, everybody. Greetings to all. Welcome to the Snooker Hall podcast. I'm Dan Murren. The 2025-26 season is gathering speed as the Championship League moves towards the second phase. Before we know it, this event will be over and the tournaments will start to come very, very quickly. To look ahead to the new season, I'm joined by one of the best snooker riders in the game. His work on Totally Snookered is essential reading for snooker fans, providing important information, stats, and opinions on this sport which we love so much. And it's the opinions which are top of the list today. I'm delighted to welcome Michael Day back to the Snooker Hall podcast.
Happy summer, Dan. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, what have you been up to this summer?
Trying to chill out, really. Obviously, the snooker calendar now is so busy. It's almost like a 12-month operation. I think we need to take time just to have a bit of a chill out while we can. So after the World Championship and the World Seniors, obviously we had Q schools, a few other things. So just try to take a bit of a break, really. And it has been a fragmented start. It kind of always is the new season. It's been good. It's been good, and we're heating up now on the bays as well. So we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, it's difficult to switch off from snooker completely, but I've kind of used other sports to switch off. I've not watched any of the FIFA Club World Championship. I've not watched any of the Women's Euros. I only watched a little bit of tennis at the French Open. I didn't watch any Wimbledon. I might watch some of the golf over the weekend, the Open. But
I've been the opposite. I've watched so much sport; it's incredible. I mean,
ah,
the French Open was amazing. Of course, the
it
men's
was.
final was just unbelievable. One of the best sporting spectacles I've ever seen. Watched a lot of the football. I didn't really watch much of the Club World Cup. There weren't
Yeah.
too many teams I was rooting for. Put it that way. I don't want to offend any listeners. Certain teams they support, but there weren't many teams I were interested in. But yeah, it's been good. I've been watching a lot of Wimbledon, a lot of the women's Euros actually, and like yourself, I'll be glued to the box for the Open this weekend.
Yeah, no, I do like the Open. It's easily one of the better tournaments of the year.
Yeah,
And
it's a great leveler, isn't it? Especially when the
yeah,
Americans come over and playing on our courses, the
yeah,
links
the
course and
links
everything. So
style
it's
is
quite a challenge for
oh,
them.
yeah. And well, do you know what? I like segues, levelers, Championship League. Some of the more high-profile names have not taken part this season, so the door is kind of open for maybe somebody to nick their first ranking event. What have you thought about it so far? Have you watched much of it, or?
I've kept tabs on it, so each day I've sort of logged in and have had a look at results here and there. Checked out the narratives. I will since earlier on this week. I've It's had a lot more of my attention, and of course we're going to be moving into stage two on Friday, and then next week we've got stage three in the grand final next Wednesday, I think it is, or Thursday. I can't remember which day. So I think it's a competition that does divide opinion. I kind of like it because I do like the setup in terms of 128 players, two tables, players get three matches in a day. I like that, especially for like the new players coming on tour this year. I mean, there's a lot of youngsters as well. They get a lot of table time. The cameras are there. Good chance of picking up some prize money over a day, and obviously a chance to qualify to the next stage. It does last 21 days, which I think is probably too long. There were talks about perhaps, I mean, could you maybe have three or four tables? I mean, could you potentially have four tables? That could work. I mean, potentially you could still have it streamed or YouTube or something along those lines. I just think perhaps the intensity sort of drains a little bit during stage one, but that'll pick up again towards the end of the tournament. But it's a very interesting last 32 lineup as we speak. There's a lot of players there further down the rankings, a lot of young players, loads of different nationalities. So I'm actually really looking forward to stage two. We could have a new ranking champion, could have a surprise winner.
Yeah, so we have some more established names. Jack Lazowski's through, Stuart Bingham is through, David Gilbert is through, I believe. Ricky Walden, I think, made it through.
Yeah,
So
Ricky's
these
through.
are known snooker names, but it's the younger guys and maybe the guys slightly just below that in the rankings. So Liam Davis, I thought he did really well, and Ben Mertens.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
caught my eye. He performed really, really well. And if he can maintain some consistency, I felt that with him. And I don't want to pigeonhole him as a Belgian, but it's kind of the same with Julian Leclerc. When he's playing well, he's really good. But then out of nowhere, he'll just throw in a stinker of a frame and he's derailed. But the second round, it's looking kind of intriguing. I love the format of the Championship League, but some of the standard in phase one was not great. I think there were some rusty players trying to find some form.
Yeah, I think that's understandable to a degree. That there is a bit of rustiness. A lot of these players won't have played until the first half of April competitively. We did have, to be fair, we did have the qualifiers for the Wuhan and the British Open, so they have a few of them would have played competitive games, but to actually play 3 matches in a day, uh, I think it's a really good format for that to get players just get back onto the match table, being involved in the tournament environment. And I'm with you. I think a lot of the youngsters that have gone through to the next round. Zizins is another one. Misa Zizins. Obviously, it's a
Yep,
big season for him. Second season. Same with Liam Davies as well. And we've also got Hayden Pinney, who I know very well, who's a local player to me. He's got through. So a lot of players who are on their second year of their tour card have gone through, and that's really important for them, obviously, if they want to maintain their tour spot. Also got Alfie Burden through as well. He's actually playing as an amateur, the World Seniors champ,
of course. Yeah,
qualified. So he got in the event as a Q Tour, a Q School top up, and he was in the group with Sean Murphy, I think, if I'm right. He beat Sean Murphy, so
yep.
he's gone through. He could be a threat to win the tournament.
I
And
don't know.
a few of
He lacks experience.
but in that format where if you can, if it all comes together on one day, which it could do for Alfie,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
who knows? I mean, that would be some story, wouldn't it? Win the World Seniors, because his journey the last few months has been crazy. Obviously, had a tour card, played in the the World Professional Championship qualifiers, didn't get through, relegated from the tour, went to the Crucible, won the World Seniors, went straight to Q School, failed to get through Q School this time. So he's back as an amateur, probably wondering what's the next step now. Gets a call up for the Championship League, goes through his group. So it's been a bit of a crazy few months for Alfie. But a few of the top players who did enter, like Barry Hawkins, Sean Murphy, Gary Wilson, I don't think did
yep.
Gary Wilson go?
He didn't
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
through. Yep.
So a few of the top players that did enter the tournament have already gone out. So there's a huge opportunity for players perhaps on the next level. But you do have people like Zhang Anders there, Li Paifan, Wu Yiza, like you say, established winners. You've got Bingham's in there, Walden's in there, Matt Sout, people who have won ranking events. So I think it's a really good mix in the last 32.
The Group B in phase two is looking particularly good. Zhang Anda, who I'm still convinced won't maintain the form of a few years ago. I'm still thinking he's going to decline. Stephen Maguire, Yuan Sijun, and Tepchai Anu. This is a good lineup.
That's some group that is.
That's
That's a
brutal.
great. Yeah. And going back to Zhang, it's interesting because he's got a lot of ranking points to defend this season, an incredible
Yeah,
amount, because it was his breakthrough season. So I think he's got 175,000 from the International Championship to defend. Got to the final of the Players Championship, a couple of other semis. I think he got to the final of the English Open. He
he
has
did.
got, you know, north of 350,000, I think, to defend. So he really needs to be on the button straight away, else he's going to plummet down the rankings.
And it's this kind of okay, it's not the highest profile event, but if Zhang Anda, obviously he's a good player, he might end up winning it. I don't think he will, but he might. But this is 33,000 ranking points. He's in a position where he can't afford to just, nah, I can't be
Yeah,
bothered. He
yeah,
actually needs these. He'll probably go to the shootout as well. If he wins
and
that
yeah.
50,000, he needs the points. He can't be picky.
I think the big one is obviously you can certain players can kind of wipe away any ranking issues they have by winning a tournament. So, for example, we'll probably get on to Ronnie O'Sullivan later on. He's
Oh,
got
yeah,
ranking issues this year, but if he was to go and say win the Saudi Arabia Masters, bang, those ranking
done.
issues have gone for 2 years. So it's the same for a lot of players, but I think in terms of consistency, you've got to get in the Players Series events. So like the World Grand Prix in Hong Kong, there's so much prize money, the Players Championship. So I think that's one of the reasons why someone like Zhang has gone in the Championship League, because he realizes, well, that could be the difference of me qualifying for Hong Kong or not later on in the season. And yeah, I think that's played a big part in players who are a little bit further down in the top 16 rankings.
Obviously, Barry Hawkins was the number one seed because everybody else above him just didn't want to play, or they felt it was best to skip it. But speaking of being just outside the top 16, my pick to win this tournament, as we approach the end of phase one, I have a sneaky suspicion that someone in your friend Hayden Pinney's group, I think Elliot Slesser might do this.
Yeah,
Got a hunch.
yeah,
Think he could.
yeah. Why not? You know, he's definitely one of the most improved players on the circuit of the last couple of years. Now in the world's top 32, he's never been higher. I don't think he's intimidated either by playing the top players. I almost think he sort of relishes it. And in this environment, as I said before, if it all clicks on a day, you're going to win the tournament. So he's got all those attributes, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was to win it. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But it's such a brutal format. You can't really take your foot off the gas. Although saying that, like I said with Hayden on Monday, it was extraordinary for him to have 1 point after 2 games, and then to go on 4 points. I mean, he's done amazingly well to win 3-0 against Hawkins. You're not denying that, but he's needed all the results to go his way to qualify on 4 points. I can't imagine, without going back through Wikipedia or Q Tracker, I can't imagine many people have gone through on 4 points before. I remember there was a group, I think last season, every single game was a draw. So I think
Yes.
somebody went through on 3 points, but to have actually sort of not won either of your first 2 games and go through, I think is quite rare. But Hayden did brilliant to actually win that game and to die Hawkins. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Slesser's a candidate to win a tournament this season.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
I think there are several other players. I think that the Championship League is a great opportunity for someone to come through the pack. I mean, somebody. I think today, as we're speaking today, I think Joe O'Connor and Zach Shirty are in the same group, and those are two players. I mean, Zach. I mean, his improvement in form and results of the last 18 months has been staggering. I mean, his performance at the Crucible against Ding on debut was remarkable. 4 centuries and what,
He did
five or
really
six.
well.
Joe O'Connor, I think, will be a top 16 player. Whether that'll be this season, maybe not. But I do think in the future he will win events because he's got a great attitude. He's from that sort of hotbed of snooker in Leicester as well. I think Joe O'Connor. And he also, it's important to remember, the first half of last season, he had a lot of points to defend and he was struggling a little bit. He was going down the rankings. I believe he got a new cue. And since then, he's sort of been reborn. He had a fantastic Welsh Open where he got to the quarterfinals. Then the World Open, he was absolutely incredible. Got to the final, only denied by John Higgins. Qualified for the Crucible again, took Higgins close in round one. I think this could be a big season for Joe O'Connor.
Yeah, I was in the Crucible for his first round match against John Higgins, and I'm going to say it wasn't a great match to watch as a spectacle, but Joe had so many chances. He will be kicking himself because John kind of, I would say dragged him down, but John wasn't playing well, but he made it scrappy and he
Mm-hmm.
managed to get a few frames over the line, which Joe should have won. And that was a missed opportunity for Joe. But obviously, John Higgins has more experience than Joe O'Connor. I think that really did tell in the end. But as the months go by, the tournaments go past, another run to a final in China, as you said, another appearance at the Crucible, the biggest stage. Well, not the biggest stage, but the most prestigious stage. There's a difference there. But this is all good experience for him. I think it could, and he has the talent. And do you know what? I've said it a few times on the podcast. The way he presents himself, it sounds such a cliche, but he presents himself with such elegance, with such class. The way he plays, it shows that he respects the sport. And if
Yes.
you're not going to do something well, don't do it at all. I think maybe, I don't know if that's the way he was brought up, but I love the way he plays. I think he's talented. I think he has a great attitude. Seems like a really nice lad. It wouldn't be a shame if he did well.
Yeah, he presents really well. He talks really well on television and social media. Also, another point as well, I think a few people forgot at the end of last season is he got to the final of the World Open and would have been feeling $1 million, playing absolutely fantastic. Obviously, he didn't quite win the title, but brilliant, brilliant form. He then didn't play until the World Championship qualifiers, which were like 6, 7 weeks after that, because you had the three Players Series events, the World Grand Prix, Tour Championship, no, World Grand Prix Players Championship, Tour Championship all in a row. And unfortunately for him, the cutoff for the World Grand Prix was before the World Open. So he couldn't get into that event regardless of how he did in Yushan. So it was a little gripe of mine last season, the structure of the calendar, because I didn't like all three Players Series events in a row. I know it's difficult arranging tournaments and broadcasters and venues and promoters and tickets, etc., etc. But I just felt there was a bit of a detachment from the lower end of the tour, lower end of the rankings last season, where they didn't play for, some, and the players who didn't qualify for the World Open. Some players hadn't played for like 2 months. So I think that's been resolved a little bit this season. Looking at the calendar, I think they've staggered it a little bit better, so that the opportunity players can qualify for these Players Series events if they were to go deep in a ranking event elsewhere. So yeah, it could be a big season for Joe O'Connor. It could be a big season for a lot of players, to be honest.
And Zach Surety, you mentioned earlier. I'm not sure if I worked this out, and if I did, I can't remember what conclusion I came to. But he should have beaten John Higgins in that semi-final in China. He had the chances. He just didn't take it. And all right, John did well to win the tournament, of course, but that could have made such a difference for Zach Surety. Okay, he made it to the Crucible anyway, but had he made it to the final, I'm pretty sure he would have made it to the Grand Prix. And then, had he won the tournament in China, I'm pretty sure he would have made it to the Players' Championship as well. He wouldn't have made the Tour Championship, but he would have just snuck into the top 16. And it's just those little margins, but that's more prize money, that's more experience on a grand stage, and it's just, he was kind of one frame away from it, really. And that's why the sport's so good. It's those little margins, and with experience, same with Joe O'Connor. If it helps these players get to a new level, new faces, more competition, it's a good thing.
I think with Zach as well, because it was the first season of his new tour card. I think he's 65th starting the new season, so he's going to break into
Yeah.
the top 64. So he's going to be guaranteed his tour card. So this season is a real sort of free hit for him in essence, because he's not going to have any issues with staying on tour, and he can only go up in the rankings, and he'll obviously maintain his ranking points going into next season. So he could be very dangerous this year if it all clicks like it did at the end of last season.
Yeah. And I see your point actually with staggering the Players Series events. If these events are held one after the other, it is a big gap for those players who haven't made it. And okay, for some players, they might like that. They might appreciate the opportunity to unwind a little bit of time away from the cameras, away from the spotlight. But some players, I guess, would prefer to keep that match sharpness. That
Oh, I think 90% of the tour want to be playing all the time. To be honest,
yeah,
the earning opportunities there, it's difficult. I mean, talking for example like Hayden, who I know very well. I don't think he qualified for the world. No, he didn't qualify for the World Open. So following qualifying for the Welsh Open, he didn't play to the World Championship qualifiers, which is 2 months. Now there was been talk online, social media. I think Elliot Slesser might have been one, or Mark Allen might have been another, about perhaps arranging a tournament for lower ranked players whilst the other events going on. I'm not sure how feasible that is, or how whether broadcasters who would get involved in that, or whether there's a market for that. But I do think it's actually something I'm going to be writing an article for the Totally Snookered website over the coming weeks. I think we should have a development tour, either a youth or development tour, which they have in darts. So in darts, they have the development tour. I think it's under 25s. I would actually have a development tour or a junior tour or something like that for players who are under a certain age and players who are new to the professional circuit. So somebody who has got a tour card for the first time for 2 years. So that could be someone who's in their 40s or whatever. I just think there should be like a development series where players of less experience than the top players can all compete together. Because if you look at, so for example, like Luke Littler or Michael Van Gerwen, they played on like a junior developmental series in the PDC and they got used to winning and
Yeah.
they took that then onto the main tour. And I don't want to ruin it too much, but like I say, I'm going to be doing an article for Totally Snookered on that over the next couple of weeks where, I'm going to be sort of beating the drum for that.
I was speaking with Ian Burns in the previous episode, actually, and he made the point that for young players, you might not win straight away, but if you, for example, if you're on the Q Tour, going away to tournaments, it's the whole experience of playing against other players. Okay, maybe the other players are not Judd Trump at the moment, but they might be. And it's a case of playing competitive snooker, and it means something. But the most important factor here is going to be money, isn't it? It's whether it pays to do this. And you know what? The idea is good. You see it in football all the time. Young players, they'll go out to, even if they're at a Premier League club, they'll go to the Championship for a season on loan just to play against physically ready players. That's a good point. I'd never thought of
I
it like
just,
this.
I just think winning is a habit,
Hmm.
but so is losing. And if you've got a youngster who's been on the junior circuit or the amateur circuit and winning a lot, say for example the new Polish player Mikkel Subacek, 14 years old, on the professional tour, decided to take the tour card. Now, over the last 18 months, 2 years, he's won a load of tournaments. He's won a load of matches. He's used to winning. He's been a winning machine. All right. Even got to the final of the European Amateur Championship, an open aged event, and that's how he qualified for the circuit. So he's gone onto the tour confident. He's won all these games. He's now coming on to the World Snooker Tour, the top tier. He's going to be losing a lot of matches. All right. I don't want to discourage him, but that's the likelihood. He's going to be losing a lot of matches. And he won't be used to that. Now, what does he do? What does he do? He's a professional player. He then can't play in amateur events. He could probably play in the odd sort of pro-am here and there. He's stuck. I don't want to say stuck because obviously you want to be on the World Snooker Tour, but you're limited to the events that you can play in. Losing could become a habit. And I just worry then about his confidence, about how he would move forward from there. On the flip side of things, Zhao Xing Tong. Now, he's unbelievable. He's the world champion, we know that. But he come back, he played on the Q Tour last season. He won 32 matches in a row. He won 4 events in a row, 32 matches in a row. And I know that's an amateur circuit, secondary tier. When he was coming into the World Championship, his confidence was sky high. Winning becomes a habit. And that he had recent memories of that as well. And he's come back onto the World Championship and he's won 9 matches in that. So he's on like a winning streak of like 41 matches. It's incredible across those tournaments. I just feel that there's a market for some sort of development series that younger players and new professionals can get involved in. Doesn't need to be a great amount of prize money, really. It's more to get them playing competitively amongst players sort of around their ilk. We are seeing that in terms of sort of like the tiered draw system with the home nations and the German Masters and stuff like that. I think that's good. But of course, obviously, other events like the Chinese events, it's all flat draw. So hopefully later in the season, Shubacek and other new players as well will be playing Hewitt's around their sort of capabilities. But I do think there is a little hole there for youngsters and new players on the circuit.
Well, that's one of the benefits of the Championship League as well, I would say. As you said earlier, you're guaranteed 3 matches. There's always going to be at least one fairly highly ranked player in each group. So you will play, one of the big boys. And that's experience. This is not to be ignored. This is not to be dismissed. I think it's important to put yourself in a position. I've forgotten the expression now. Oh yeah, it was
No
no,
worries.
no, that was it. You start swimming in the shallow end. You don't start swimming in the deep end, or something like that. But if you don't put yourself in a position where you're testing yourself, then you're never going to improve. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
but I
think
mean,
yeah.
Shubacek's first game on tour, he played Murphy, Sean Murphy. So you talk about the shallow end. He's been straight away deep when you're playing the
Plunged
Masters
into the
champion.
ocean.
You had Leon Crowley, who's the World Snooker Federation junior champion. His first match was against Robertson, Triple Crown winner, one of the greatest players of all time. So I don't want to sort of bring up the whole tiered draw, flat draw system, etc. I think that's been done to death, and I think there is a good mixture now of that sort of different formats on the circuit. Perhaps the Chinese events need to be looked at potentially over the next couple of seasons, but hopefully those players will have more of a chance later on in the year, especially in events like the Home Nations, the Saudi Masters in UK. Both of them use a tier draw system. If they were to win a
Mhm.
couple of games, you get some really good prize money in those events. That could boost your confidence up no end. So I think the proof will be in the pudding in a few months' time when those events are being played.
And speaking of two factors you've just mentioned there, so events in China and the flat draw, the Shanghai Masters is coming up, and I gotta say, I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. The format, it used to be the top 16, but now it's 24 with some wild cards included. And I don't want to say I don't like change. I like change when there's a point to it. But the Shanghai Masters for me is like the Masters, but in China. It's the best players. Imagine if we put wildcard players in the Masters at Ali Pali. There'd be uproar. But they're doing it in Shanghai this time. And I don't like it. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I've got a difference of opinion on this. I actually do like it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. People in the comments and everything, but I don't mind that personally. And it's the Shanghai Masters has changed a lot. Obviously, it's been on the circuit I think since 2007 when Dominic Dale won it, and it's changed format since then. Obviously, it was a ranking event. It was 32 players, and it moved to like 64 players at the venue. Then it changed to this invitational format, and that's more of obviously like a promotional thing. The promoters over there, they want to guarantee that the top players are there, top players against playing top players. And I think it's one of the biggest events on the circuit now. I think the reason why they don't just limit it to 16 is obviously they want as much Chinese participation as they can. So obviously they can shoehorn in the wild cards, four wild cards, and then the four highest ranked Chinese players who aren't in the top 16 coming to the tournament. Obviously, it's basically a preliminary round before the last 16, isn't it?
Yes.
And I don't mind that because it does just add, it makes it different to the Masters in London. I think if it was just a top 16, it would almost be feel a bit carbon copy like from what you're going to see in a few months' time in London. That's just my opinion. I just think adding an extra round just gives it a bit of its own identity. Of course, for them, they're using two tables, so it's more matches, more ticket revenue, more money from broadcasts, etc., like that. So I'm not too bothered really. I mean, if they were to ever get rid of those eight and it was 16, I'd still think it'd be a great event. And if you look at the lineup, it's going to be a brilliant tournament. I think it will be interesting though because it's going to be like Ronnie's first game of the season, Xiao Tong's first match,
Yep.
Judd Trump's first match. So you don't know how they're going to play, but it's been like this last couple of years in the calendar, and I'm really looking forward to it.
One positive thing I will say actually is the round one draw has thrown up some pretty tasty matches. So Neil Robertson versus Pang Junzhu, and the one that I'm particularly looking forward to, Barry Hawkins, Wu Yiza. Two very, very good players, but obviously, yeah, there is a generational gap there. But that should be a really, really good match.
Yeah, yeah, that, and I think the winner of that plays Ronnie. So there's a big
Yes.
golden ticket there for whoever wins that. Uh, perhaps I'm being going back on what I just said there. The four wild cards are invited to the tournament. I think they have a amateur Shanghai Masters. I think they had it a few weeks ago. I do kind of wonder what that adds to it because of a few of the players that have been invited the last couple of years, they've not really done much. I think wasn't there a 14 or 15-year-old player from China a couple of seasons ago? I think 2023 he won an opening round match. I can't remember who he beat.
Ah, that
But then he
sounds
played Ronnie.
familiar.
Then he played Ronnie in the first. in the last 16, I think he took a frame off Ronnie, but Ronnie won 6-1. So, but yeah, it's big prize money,
Yep.
210 grand, I think, for the winner. So it's way at the top of the players' priority list.
And as you said, Zhao Zintong, the reigning, defending world champion. This will be the first event in China when we have a Chinese world champion. This is big. Kind of looked like for a while that it might not happen anytime soon, but what are your thoughts on how this could impact the game on a global scale?
Yeah, I understand that a lot of people are uncomfortable with obviously what's happened to Zhao when he's come back. This is his first match as a fully fledged professional again, isn't it? He's got his tour card back after his ban. For me, I was delighted he won tournament. Whoever wins the world championship deserves it. So whoever wins, people are going to congratulate them. They deserve it. I think that's really needed. I think it was great timing that Zhao won the world championship, and the reason is we talk about how snooker is so massive in China. We've got hundreds of thousands of clubs, people are playing it, etc. There's youngsters, etc. playing. You might have seen Stephen Hendry's Q-Tips, his latest episode where he went to China and went into a billiards hall and they're all playing, etc. But if you notice, they were playing Hable, they were playing pool. Now, Chinese 8-ball, Hable, whatever it's called, over in China, I'm hearing conflicting reports. People are saying that is now the number one cue sport. People are playing Hable. They're playing because it's a smaller table, etc. A club owner can fit more pool tables in than snooker tables, etc. I think it was just great timing that Zhao Xingtong won the World Snooker Championship. It just puts snooker back up again in China, and who knows what it will do. Hopefully, it will inspire players to play snooker instead of pool. I mean, I love all cue sports. So, I work in all cue sports, so I'm not rooting one on the other. But hopefully, China will now have a second wave of love for snooker, which we saw 20 years ago when Ding won his first ranking event. So I think it'd be really big. And I actually put on my Twitter page yesterday that Zhao Xingtong plays on July 30th on the evening session. And then the table opposite him is Ronnie O'Sullivan. So, which match? Obviously, they'll be broadcasting both matches. You'll be able to. It's not like one game you can't see, but one of them will be the feature table. One of them will be on CCTV in China. One of them will be on TNT Sports in UK. Who do they put on the feature table? Now, is this because if they were to turn around and say, "Oh, we're gonna show Zhao Xingtong. It's his first game as world champion in China. It's his first game back on professional tour." I think they've got to. I think they've got to put him ahead of. Would that be? And that would almost signal a bit of a changing of the guard, because I can't ever remember Ronnie not being the feature table. I think he played in the World Open or Wuhan Open either last season or the season before, where Ronnie was put on table 2 against Hossein Vafai, I think it was. And there was like, wow, they put Ronnie on table 2. But so there's very few instances where Ronnie's playing, he's not on the feature table. But for me, that would be really interesting that day to see where the focus is. Because I think Zhao should have the focus. And if he does, it'll almost be, wow, maybe this is a new era for snooker.
I agree 100%. I think snooker needs to move on. Ronnie's going to retire at some point. Yes, he's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic draw. But we can't rely on him forever. And the first Chinese world champion playing his first match on the tour in China, how can this man not be on the TV table, the center stage table, the showpiece table, whatever you want to call it? If Ronnie O'Sullivan is put on that table, it will show that snooker is still kind of stuck in the past. And okay, maybe it's just, I suppose it's up to the organisers of the event, but this is an opportunity, and it's just a little taster of what we can expect in the coming year. I hope they don't blow this, because we need new faces. I say Ronnie, Okay, he did well in the World Championship, but he was gone for half the season. His projected ranking this season, it's not looking too healthy for a player of his stature. We can't rely on him anymore. It's and this is a great opportunity to showcase a new star of snooker. I cannot believe they would put Ronnie on the main table.
Well, somebody on I put on the Totally Snookered Facebook page about this, basically asking people who they think should be on the feature table, and one of our followers put a screenshot up of some promotional advertising material from the actual event. A lot of it was in Chinese, so I didn't know what it was saying, but the actual names of the players were in English. And Zhao Xintong is on table one that night. It's already been set that he is on table one. However, whether the TV will have feeds for both tables, it'll be up to them. I think Shanghai Masters is going to be on TNT Sports here in the UK. It is a numbers game, though. The TV companies will decide, well, who's going to draw in more fans? Who are we going to get more viewers for? And for a UK based audience, perhaps Ronnie may still get the nod. Me as a snooker fan, a hardcore snooker fan, I want to see Zhao that day. Obviously, I want to see Ronnie as well, but for me, Zhao takes preference that day. It'd be interesting. I mean, another issue when you're talking about tables and who's going to be at the front, etc., is the Saudi Arabia Masters in a few weeks' time. So that comes almost immediately after the Shanghai Masters. Now, I know there's a lot of some ill feeling amongst people the way it's marketed as a fourth major. Obviously, there's a sports washing debate about it as well. But if we were to take all that away and actually look at the event, it was played across 9 days. Last year they had a round a day, and when the top 16 players come in at the last 32 stage, I felt it was quite rushed because there was only 2 sessions, there was only one match table, and I just hope that they change the format slightly this year because it did feel a bit rushed. Because that day you had all the top 16 playing, but you only saw 2 of them play. You had Judd Trump in the afternoon playing Wu Yizzo when he was 4-0 down and come back to win 5-4.
Yep.
And then the evening you had Ronnie O'Sullivan, who I think he played Lei Pei Fan or was it Hong Yu? I can't remember. And Ronnie won easily. You had Kyron Wilson, who was world champion. He was on essentially an outside table. You had Selby, you had Robertson, you had Murphy. You had all these other players playing an outside table. You wouldn't even know they were in the tournament. I think Mark Allen, who was the world number one at the time, he wasn't playing on the main table. So it's an interesting issue this season that, who do they push? How do they push? Because you've got Judd Trump, who's world number one. You've still got Ronnie, who is the biggest draw in the game still.
Yep.
He is. He's not the world champion, but he's the biggest draw in the game. You've got Zhao Xintong. You've got other players as well who will be in contention to be on the TV table. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting how the season goes in terms of Zhao. I think he's certainly been well received in China, hasn't it? Some of the things he's been involved in, going to like fashion shows and signing up sponsorship deals with cars and things like that. I think in China they really embraced it. It's how we embrace it here for like the big BBC events and the UK based events. Are we going to put him front and center, which I think we should, or are they going to be a bit cautious and have Ronnie as the poster boy and Trump and other people? So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they approach it.
I think if we consider, this idea of a changing of the guard, I thought last season we would see this, but now in the top 5 we've got John Higgins, Mark Williams,
Yeah.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, right
Yes.
near the top of the rankings. Mark
Yeah.
Williams made the final of the World Championship, the final in Saudi Arabia, champion of champions as well, if I remember correctly. John Higgins won a couple of tournaments, and so it shows that maybe they're not quite done yet. Will they?
Yeah.
It's tough to.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, in terms of changing of the guard, I don't necessarily mean a changing the guard in that respect. In terms of perhaps like the way they promote and certain things. Yeah, you're correct. John Higgins and Mark Williams to be in the top 4 both age 50, and they're going to be in the top 16 for the next 18 months because of the way the rankings work. They've just won a load of money last season, so they're going to be in the top 16 when they're 52. That's almost guaranteed. What I love about this season is you've got so many different like factions, and it's going to be such an unpredictable season. This really could be the best season ever, in my opinion, because you've got so many different people, eras coming along. Like I say, you've got the class of '92. Higgins and Williams are up there. They're ranking event champions. You've got Ronnie O'Sullivan, who is up there at the minute, but he's got a lot of points to defend. So you've got that storyline. Then you've got the fight for the world number one. You've got Judd Trump, Karen Wilson. They've got an amazing rivalry. Okay. Then you've got, I say, just the other side of 40-year-old, the 40 something. So you've got Robertson, Murphy, Selby. All of them won events last season. All right. So they're sort of like a group of their own, and they're sort of trying to get back right to the top. They're back in top 16. And then you've got a wave of young Chinese players who are trying to make their breakthrough. And they've been led by Zhao. You've got Xi Jiawei. You've got Wu Yize. You've got people like Lei Pei Fan, Huan Sijun. All of them coming through. And then you've got a load of real youngsters who are playing in their first or second seasons. The European youngsters, like Mertens and Zizins and, Shubacek. You've got that story. So you've got so many narratives this season. I think it's fascinating. I think it's going to be the most unpredictable season we've ever seen.
It's like a good soap opera. There's not just
Yeah,
one good
it is.
storyline. There's 4, 5, 6
Yeah,
narratives that you can follow,
yeah.
and they all intertwine. And and everyone's playing for a living. Everyone's playing to compete. Everybody wants to win, but only one person can. And this is good. This is great competition. This is great sport. This is what makes sport a concept that we love so much. It's unpredictable.
Yeah, and you see it in snooker. Obviously, snooker is not the most physical of sports. You don't see this in things like tennis or whatever. I mean, well, you say that. I thought it was fascinating seeing Djokovic trying to hold back, Sinner and Alcaraz, different generations. We're talking the difference in 15 years here. That's quite unusual for tennis. But in snooker, you've got teenagers playing snooker matches against. I mean, if you're, for example, like Jimmy White, someone in their 60s, you just don't see that elsewhere in professional sport. And I think that's why snooker's it's got so much charm. And like I say, there's so many storylines this season. I'm really looking forward to it.
It was in the World Championship qualifying. Jimmy White was playing against Anton Kazakov, and I'm not quite sure how old Anton Kazakov is. He's kind of young though, but that's not just one generation gap. You could almost say that's 2 generation gaps.
And
It's
I stayed up to watch the end of that because I think it was like 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. That was,
yep,
yeah, I remember I stayed up watching that on the stream
yeah, that
as a
was
huge Jimmy
10-9.
White fan. Nothing against Kazakov, but that was, I think Jimmy was he 9-6 up or something. He was sort of coasting,
Yeah,
and Kazakov just brought it back, and even in the deciding frame, I think Jimmy got to a stage where Kazakov needed a snooker, and he got it, and then oh my god, he might lose it again.
yep.
So yeah, I remember that game. That was, and we see matchups like that in snooker. It's great.
What was it? It was a few years ago. Maybe it was this youngster you mentioned in the Shanghai Masters. It might have been, maybe it wasn't, but Ronnie O'Sullivan played against some kid who was like 14 or 15. But then when Ronnie O'Sullivan was 17, he played against somebody who had been champion 50 years before. I forget, is it Fred Davis? I don't know. But the
Fred
gap
Davis, yes, yeah,
in maybe, well, yeah, okay. And but one player, the young Chinese player, was born, I think it was like 93 years after the other opponent that Ronnie had played. So
yeah.
Ronnie had played such a difference in time, and he had played both. It's incredible to think of that. Like, that's more than a
Yeah,
lifetime for most people.
I think I put that up on my Twitter page, or Facebook page. Yeah, it was like Fred Davis, Ronnie O'Sullivan, and I think it was Lei Pei Fan, or was it CJ? I can't remember, but yeah, it was crazy. So in between like Fred Davis and Lei Pei Fan, it's like an age difference of like 90, 95 years, and Ronnie's played both of them
Yeah,
competitively on the professional circuit.
it's
That's quite
amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
No, it's the kind of thing. It's, yeah, okay, players come, players go, but longevity, it can throw up some weird anomalies, like the Jimmy White things. When you look at the first time Jimmy White was in the World Championship, I wasn't even born. But now I'm watching him as a 60-something-year-old, and he's playing. Sometimes he's going to be playing kids who are young enough to be his grandkids, and it's yeah. But then when you think when Jimmy was a youngster and he was playing the veterans of that time, the age gap's got to be 50+ years, isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, Mentioning Zhao Zintong there, it's obviously it's sorry we cannot really make a prediction on this. Luca Brissell as world champion did not perform. Let's be honest. I don't have this fear with Zhao Zintong. Kyron Wilson, first time champion, he had a acceptable season, we'll say. 4 ranking events, just the 4, and an appearance in the Masters final. So he did very, very well. What do you think about Zhao Zintong's chances this season as a one-off season?
I think he falls in the middle of that personally. I don't buy into the notion that he'll dominate the sport in any way. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think it's important to go back to the fact that, this will be his first season back as a professional since 2022, was it, or 2023? So whilst he's been winning all these games on the Q Tour and he won the World Championship 9 games in a row, he will lose matches this season. He will experience downturns in form, and it's how he recovers from that. So if I had to put money on it, I think he'll win. I think he'll win events. I think he could win multiple events, so 2 or 3. I don't think he'll dominate in any way. But yeah, I think he'll be a really good ambassador. I think he'll hold the role well. He's a cool cookie, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's a cool cookie. I think he'll enjoy being world champion, but he won't be too sort of outlandish, too out there with it. I think he'll hold himself well, and I'll expect him to lift a few trophies this season. That's my personal opinion. What about yourself, Dan? Do you think he's?
I think when it comes to the higher profile events, for example, even the Shanghai Masters coming up, I think we can expect good performances. Like this guy, he is special on the table. I was there for all of for the first 3 sessions. Obviously, we didn't get the final session of the Zhao Zintong Ronnie match, but some of the snooker he played was fantastic. Okay, Ronnie wasn't at his best, and he left him some chances, but he punished Ronnie's mistakes. This showed a ruthlessness that you need in snooker. I don't think he'll take his foot off the gas at all, and I agree. I think, will he dominate the season? Probably not. Judd Trump, Kyron Wilson will have a few things to say about that. But yeah, he'll absolutely challenge at the business end of several events, and he's one of the big boys now. He will be
I think it's
threat everywhere.
yeah. I think it's. I don't want this to sound harsh, but he kind of won the World Championship, certainly at the Crucible at Canter. He won a lot of his matches with so many frames to spare. I wanted Mark Williams to get a good start in the final, to put Zhao under pressure, because I wanted to see how Zhao would react. But, he took a first session lead, and by the end of day 2, he was almost into the distance. We were almost sort of engraving the trophy. And it was kind of like that all the way through the stages of the Crucible, wasn't it? I mean, he took an early lead against Jack Jones, took an early lead against Lei Pei Fan, Chris Wakelin. I mean, the Chris Wakelin game, the quarterfinal game, was dreadful. I mean, both players would say that they were really, really, it was such a poor game. But because Zhao took an early advantage early on, it didn't matter to him. He kind of coasted that against Ronnie. He had the session where he won 8-0 and all the pressure's off. What I want to see this season is, and obviously it will happen, is how he copes under pressure in the big events. So, say for example, he turns up at the Saudi Masters. If he's like 4-2 down in a best of 11, how is he going to respond to that? We've not really seen that, to be honest, because I think the 2 ranking events he won during his first spell on tour, so the German Masters, UK Championship, I don't recall him being in trouble in those tournaments either too much. So, I'm not saying he's a flat track bully, where he, if he gets in front, he sort of motors his way through, because most of the top players are like that anyway. But it will be interesting to see when he plays in tournaments and players are sort of giving it to him how he reacts. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to to seeing him this season. I think he'll win trophies.
The closest he was pushed at the World Championship was actually in qualifying. Elliot Slesser
Yeah,
made
yeah,
it 10-8, and
yeah,
Long Zhu Wang. And I
yeah. The
mentioned this
Long
actually.
Juan game.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were good matches.
Long
And
Juan
but
in
he
10-8.
it's a little sign maybe he can handle it, but
Yeah,
that's not in the
yeah.
Crucible. That's not in the Tempodrome. That's not at the Barbican.
Hmm.
Maybe there are a few factors which, but it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, and that's the exciting bit.
Yeah, we've not really. It's fascinating, really, because he's the world champion, but I can't remember him being involved in a match where it went to a deciding frame, except one, and that was UK Championship last year. He qualified for that, and I think he lost to Murphy 6-5, didn't he? I just want to see Zhao under pressure because I don't think I've ever seen him sort of under the pump too much. I just want to see if he sort of goes into his shell. If it was a deciding frame of say like the UK Championship or Saudi Masters final, I want to see somebody like a Judd Trump or a Kyron really get into him and see how he copes there. And it's fascinating we say that because it's really weird, isn't it? He's the world champion, and it sounds paradoxical, but there's so much we don't know about him, really, because he obviously won the UK Championship, won the German Masters, but within a few months he's then been suspended from the tour, so all his progress has stopped. Obviously, he'd been around on the circuit a few years then as he progressed up the rankings, but I'm really looking forward to seeing him back for the whole season and seeing how he copes with all the sort of dips in results and form, whatever.
And the final group to discuss, you did mention it a few moments ago, but for me, this is the most interesting, the most intriguing group of players. And you group these three together. I always group them together as well. I don't know if that's how we've been manipulated by the snooker media, but I think they do belong together. Mark Selby, Sean Murphy, Neil Robertson. All of them have completed the Triple Crown. All of them are greats of the sport. Sean won the Masters. Neil won a couple of trophies last season. Mark Selby won a couple of trophies last season. Like these guys are not to be discounted. For me, this is the most intriguing trio. The intriguing, is that a pun you can make? Intriguing, the
You've
intriguing
invented something
trio.
there.
I tried, yeah. Um, but for me, that's the that's a really really interesting narrative to see how these guys get on because you can never count them out. Watching Neil Robertson play when he's on form, he looks like he can beat anyone. But then sometimes he'll just go into a shell and he won't play well. But it depends which Neil turns up. Sean Murphy, more often than not, plays really well, and you have to excel to beat him. And Mark Selby is Mark Selby. He's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. I'm really intrigued to see how these guys get on. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them won a big event, like one of the Triple Crown or the Saudi event. It's
Hmm.
this is story
Yeah,
number one for me.
you can't discount. Obviously, you cannot discount them. But look at the World Championship. None of them got past the last 16. Robertson and Selby both lost first round. Murphy lost to Trump, so obviously,
Yep,
Trump would have been favourite to win that
that
game.
happens. Yeah,
I just don't think. I don't think any of them, any three of them, are near their peak, and whether they'll get to their peak again. Well, I mean, obviously they're in their 40s now. They're approaching mid 40s. Of course, they're capable of winning any tournament they play in, but they're never going to. Can I say this? I don't think they're ever going to be like a dominant world number one. So, for example, Selby was just a dominant world number one, wasn't he, for like 4 or 5 years?
yeah.
Is he going to get to that sort of same level of sort of dominance and form? I don't think he will. He's going to win events. He won events last season. Robertson, of course, won the English Open World Grand Prix last year, but I still didn't feel as if he's peak Robertson. And Murphy is erratic. Sure, Murphy's always been erratic, to be honest. I mean, his top game is amazing. We saw it at the Masters in full flow. 147, absolutely loved it there. He was peacocking, wasn't he? He absolutely loved it at the Ali Pali.
Yep.
And when he's on that form, he can win any tournament he wants. But he's never really had a career where he's had a fantastic season and followed it up with another fantastic season. If you look throughout the annals of the game, he wins events, then he has a quiet season, then he wins events, then he has a quiet season. I think that's the reason why he's never been world number one, because he just hasn't had that consistency. You could probably put in as well potentially like a Barry Hawkins. Of course, we know Barry's not won a Triple Crown event, but Barry's the same sort of age group as them lot. So can he win a Triple Crown event? He's kind of the bridesmaid, isn't he? He's been to so many Triple Crown events now and just fallen short.
Yeah.
It would have been amazing if he won the championship last year against Judd. It would have been such a deserving victory. But yeah, I think, of course, any three of those players are capable of winning any event they go in, but consistency is an issue for them, and I think that's just a thing with getting older, isn't it? It's just trying to be consistent. So for them, it's more of an issue of timing, I think, than anything.
Sort of, I don't want to say it sums up Sean Murphy's career, because I would put Sean Murphy in the top 10 players of all time. Looking at his record, the way he plays, I think he's a fantastic person to have in snooker. But there is one moment, when you mentioned Judd Trump there, for example, there was a match, and I want to say it was at the Champion of Champions a few years ago, and it's first to six. Sean Murphy's 2-0 up, and he's in the balls, and I think he's like 40 or 50 ahead, and it's a simple red, and he missed it. And I remember thinking at the time, that is going to bite him in the bum. Before you know it, Judd Trump has brought it back to 2-2, and suddenly Judd Trump is 3-2 ahead. And instead of being 3-0 up, suddenly he's 3-2 down, and it was one ball. And it was the ruthlessness that Judd Trump has. Like, Judd Trump is, and I mean this as the biggest compliment, he is a nasty snooker player. If you mess up, he will not show any mercy. And Sean showed just a little glimmer. Maybe it was a lack of concentration, or I doubt it was cockiness, overconfidence on the table, because Sean will know how dangerous Judd is. But it just took one moment and it turned the match. Judd ended up winning. I think it was 6-4 in the end. But when you should be 3-0 up, and suddenly you find yourself 3-2 down, maybe that is the difference between how many ranking events has Judd won now? 30 odd? Sean Murphy's on 10, which is obviously incredible. But I thought that was such an important little snippet of how we can judge the two players. I would love to see Sean Murphy win more, because I love the way he plays. But
I think the magic between Murphy, Robertson, and Selby is they're all different players, aren't they? They've all got sort of different attributes. With Murphy, when it all comes together, he's almost unstoppable. When he won the World Championship in 2005, he was all out attack. I mean, he really was. He was all. It was almost a bit like Luca Brissell when he won the World Championship. Murphy come in, went for everything, and he pulled it off. It was unbelievable. One of the best World Championship wins of all time. And if you talk about longevity, since that victory, 2005, hasn't he been in like the top 16 pretty much all that time for 20 years, near enough?
yeah,
That's incredible.
he's doing
That's
something
not
right. Yeah,
enough. And that's, and Murphy does have peaks and troughs in terms of results and trophies, but he's sort of, if you go through his record, he'll get a trophy after a couple of years. He's always kept himself in like the Masters and big events and stuff like that. And I don't think Murphy gets enough credit for that. Whereas someone like Robertson, he's dropped outside of the top 16 a couple of times and had to work his way back in. So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how them three get on this year. Wouldn't be surprised if they all won a trophy, though. But whether or not they can put it all together at like the World Championship, for example, I mean, I can't believe I'm questioning Selby about that. But, Selby hasn't really done much. Well, no, he did. He obviously got to the final at 2023, but he's lost first round in the last couple of years. You just wonder, a little bit of scar in there. Now he's into his 40s. Has he got another World Championship in him? I don't know. I mean, if he beat Luca, I often think if he beat Brissell a couple of years ago in 2023, he would have been on 5 World Championships. We would have then been talking, well, actually, can he get to 7? Can he break, Hendry's record? Or, level up with O'Sullivan? So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Those little margins again, though. It's was it 18-15? I think he lost to Luca, but he put in a
Yeah,
maximum in that
yeah,
final as well. So he was playing well, but Luca was on fire, and Luca had a great deal of confidence from his massive comeback in the semi-final against CJW. But in the other semi, forget who Mark Selby was playing in the other semi. Stuart Bingham, was it?
Mark Allen, because it was a game that never ended.
Yeah, I can't remember. Eh,
Mark Allen, it
But
finished at like 1 in the morning.
but a few years before that, the 2020 championship, it was Ronnie versus Mark Selby in the semi-final, and it went to the decider, and Mark should have won that.
Yeah,
And given how the other
yeah,
semi-final, the Wilson McGill, I'm gonna say whoever won the Selby O'Sullivan final was going to become world champion. The other player, emotionally,
yeah.
physically drained, they were at a huge disadvantage. Had Mark Selby won that deciding frame, let's be honest, there's a good chance that he would have won another world championship. And then suddenly, Ronnie O'Sullivan hasn't won a title. Mark Selby has, and then he's only one behind Ronnie O'Sullivan, and Ronnie's still on six.
Yeah, yeah.
Those little changes, those little margins, but that's the tragedy of
Sliding
sport.
door moments,
It's
isn't it?
sliding doors moments, yeah.
I mean, Selby, like I say, if he won that semi against Ronnie, he would have been favourite against Kyron in the final. If he beat Brissell, I know these are all ifs, shoulda, coulda, wouldas. He could be on
Yeah,
6 world titles today, couldn't he?
he
You know,
could.
he's only
I
a
really
few,
think he could.
a couple of matches away from that. So yeah, very interesting, very interesting.
He's done all right, though. Overall, he's done all right.
Yeah, he's done all right. Yeah, he's not had a bad career, Max. I mean, I think even he would say that if he was to quit tomorrow, he's achieved, far more than he could have ever imagined. I remember Willie Thorne talking about obviously all the youngsters coming through with Selby back in the day in Leicester, Malcolm Thorne's club in Leicester. Selby wasn't somebody that they pinpointed as being like a mega star, as a world champion, as a world number one. They thought that he might be, a good professional, make a good living from it. But he wasn't somebody they sort of pointed out as being a world beater, and he proved everybody wrong. I don't think Mark Selby gets half as the credit he should. He absolutely dominated snooker for 4 or 5 years. He really did. He was world champion, world number one, won 3 world championships in 4 years. We've not seen that sort of dominance since Hendry's days. So Selby is legit one of the greatest of all time, and he's right at the top. He's right at the top for me.
It was a 10-year period, or 10 seasons, and Mark Selby made 5 world championship finals out of 10, and he won
Yeah,
4 of them.
that's
Like,
incredible. Yeah, that's incredible.
this ain't an average player. This is one of the greats.
Yeah,
And when you look at it, when you look at that stat, yeah, he was in half of the world championship finals. So yeah, 20 places in the finals, he took a quarter of them. Like, that's
yeah,
incredible.
incredible.
So, yeah. You mentioned that you might have an article coming out on Totally Snookered. What else can people look forward to? Any sneak peeks?
Yeah,
Any
so
little snippets you can reveal?
yeah, so obviously I'm back to sort of work now after a little break. So we've got a lot of things planned this season. We're going to be looking at we're going to have this. I guess it's almost like a retro series where we're going to be looking at snooker in the past and stories that are quite interesting. So you're going to be seeing quite a few sort of like niche things coming up. And I've got an article up there I put up yesterday, and Willie Thorne named it as, I think a bit in tongue in cheek, as one of snooker's biggest injustices, where there was an issue with the scoreboard error at the 1993 Dubai Classic. So we've got an article on the website now if people want to go and have a look at that. And we're going to be looking at sort of like interesting things, funny, a bit light-hearted things, alongside our usual coverage in terms of results and what people are saying in the press, etc., and hot topics and issues. So we've got a big mixture of things coming up.
And what's your snooker calendar looking like this season? Are you going to be heading to some events?
Yeah, hopefully. I think the first event I'm going to be going to is the British Open, because traveling up with Hayden, because his first round game's been held over. He's got Xiao Gudong. So hopefully, and I'm in Plymouth. So that's actually my local event, even though it's like 3 hours away.
Yeah.
So that's a good start of me, Cheltenham for the British Open. I'm hoping to go up to the UK Championship this year, Barbican York. I've actually never been there. Actually, I've never been to the Barbican, so that's somewhere where I really want to go because people say that it's fantastic in that time of year as well with Christmas coming up. It's really good. So yeah, hopefully I'll be at the Masters as well, the Worlds, and we'll see if we can fit anything in between. I actually also want. I quite like to go to the shootout this year as well. I know it's a bit decisive, Um, people are sort of on the fence with the shootout, but with it being back in Blackpool this year, I think that'll be a real sort of like party atmosphere, especially around Christmas time. So hopefully I'll be able to get up for the shootout too.
Speaking of that, I thought of a bad pun, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know what? Life is for living. So the shootout has moved back to Blackpool. So then I thought of Amy Winehouse, back to black, but then back to
Yeah.
Blackpool, back to Black Snooker. It's so bad. I'm sorry. Sorry to everyone listening. That's
Mm.
you can see what I mean though. But pool, it's not pool,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
snooker. Yeah, it's
Contact World Snooker Tour, see if they want to take that
yeah, I should pattern that. Yeah, I don't
some
think I'll get
royalties for
many.
that.
I don't think I'll get much demand for that copyright material. Let's just say that. Yeah, and young players that you are excited to look out for, or maybe returning professionals. Who have you got your eye on this season?
All of them, really. I think Shubacek is going to be fascinating to see how he gets on. It's going to be a struggle for him. It will be very, very difficult. But as long as he can take something from every match, as long as he can learn, and he's going to pick up experience. What I've seen of him, he seems very level-headed. So the matches he does lose, I think he will take something from that. So looking forward to seeing how he gets on. Zizins, let's say Artemi's at Zizins, it's his second season. Interesting to see how he gets on. He's made a decent start to the new campaign. Liam Davies as well has made a fantastic start. I think hasn't he qualified for everything and obviously got through his championship league. So
Yep.
it'll be fascinating to see how he gets on. The other European youngsters, you've got Anthony Kowalski, Bulshku Revez. They're up against it this season to stay on tour. So it'll be interesting how they get on. Everyone really. I keep tabs on everyone. There's certain players who we talked about at the start of the episode. People like Slesser, O'Connor, people who could potentially make their breakthrough this season, and obviously you've got all the Chinese players as well, where there's so many of them now who could potentially just come through the pack and win a tournament. And we've seen this several times now over the last couple of years. And we've seen Zhang Anders won one, Zhao Gudong's won one, Lei Pei Fan, Fan Zhenji. Which Chinese player is going to come through this season and win their first tournament? For me, could be Huan Sijan. I mean,
I
he had
agree. Yeah.
a good second half. He's somebody that would aim up. It's interesting with Wu Yiza and Si Wei because they're kind of obviously you've got Ding, you've got Zhao, Zhang, Zhao Gudong. They've all won ranking events now. They're in the top 16. So you're looking at the Chinese players just underneath people like Si Wei, Wu Yiza, who are still chasing their first ranking event crown. Did they miss the boat a little bit last season? Did they miss the boat? I mean, Wu Yiza got to 2 finals. Si Wei's got to a couple of finals now. Hopefully they can get a ranking event under their belt sooner rather than later because, the longer they wait, that could become an issue. So, yeah, fascinating. I think we'll see. I think we'll see a couple of new champions this season. And as I said, there's so many different narratives now. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
I agree with your point there, Wan Sujun. At the start of last season, most snooker fans would have said if there were one of the Chinese lads to win a ranking event, I think most would have said Xu Jiahui or Wu Yiza. And it turned out, no. Lei Pei Fan, Zhao Zintong won ranking events. I would actually say the same thing is going to happen this season. I don't think Si Jiahui will win an event. I don't think Wu Yiza will win an event. I would say Wan Sijun, as you said. I would put Pang Chunzu above them as well in terms of likely winners of ranking events.
Yeah. He's,
I
he's
really
in that
love.
bracket, definitely.
I watched him against Zhang Anda at the Crucible, and I'm not exaggerating. I think it might have been the most boring session of snooker I've ever watched live. It was a drag, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast. Joe Perry was on comms, and I think it was in the second or third frame, and we were already an hour in, and Joe Perry said, "This is tough going." And I thought, wow, Joe tells it as it is. But I think Pang Junzu, if you look at his matches, he gets to a lot of deciding frames. And he wins a fair few of them, like well over half.
Yeah,
So in
yeah,
terms of
yeah,
battle scars and battle hardened, he's not a rookie, and he's been to a ranking event final. Okay, he lost it to Mark Selby, but he's been to the second round of the Crucible. He's won at the Crucible. This is the most prestigious stage of all. I think I would bet on him above Sijia Wei, or Wu Yizhen actually, because I think he's a little bit
yeah.
more as an all-round player. I think he's actually kind of better.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, yeah, that's a fair shout. Yeah, he is very he's a different player to the others. And I think just as a complete outside punt who ticks both the boxes of being a Chinese player and a youngster is Chang Bingyu. See how he gets on. Obviously, he's come back from a ban. He was somebody that Ronnie O'Sullivan talked up a lot back in around sort of 2020 when he was on tour as a 16-year-old. He's made a decent start to the season. It'd be interesting to see how he gets on. I'm not saying he's going to win a tournament, but it wouldn't surprise me if he went deep into like a quarter or a semi-final somewhere.
And final point before we wrap up here, the TV situation. So Channel 5 have taken some events. ITV, it would appear, are going to lose, well, all of their snooker. Do you think this will have any impact on snooker, or do you think it's just people will just watch it? It's on free-to-air TV anyway. Do you think it's a big thing, or?
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing personally because Channel 5 is a terrestrial channel here in the UK. It's free to view, even though obviously you pay a license fee, etc. I think it's really big. Nothing against ITV4 coverage. I've really enjoyed seeing ITV4 snooker for the last decade or so. They're sort of like music montages, the way they do things, their commentary and punditry teams, fantastic. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Channel 5 do, see if they sort of mix it up a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to alienate snooker fans and change it too much, but they've got the opportunity to do a few sort of like, you know, quirky, cool things potentially. And by the sounds of it, they sound really keen on snooker. So hopefully they'll have the whole ITV catalogue come over, and who knows, they may even have a couple more events than that. Big thing, obviously, the TNT Sports issue might be an issue for people. We've got Shanghai Masters, which is on TNT Sports. I know it's prohibitive for some people in terms of having to pay for different TV packages, etc. We've been so used to watching snooker on Eurosport for the last 10, 15 years now. For it to move somewhere else, it'll be interesting to see how the numbers and viewing figures get on. And I believe it's the last year of their contract as well. So this season could really be a big season off the table as well, to see what contracts are being signed and whether new broadcasters are coming in. So, yeah, I think the Channel 5 deal is good for snooker. I think that'll be positive. What happens with TNT Sports, Eurosports, the events on there, like the Home Nations, that's in the last season of its 10-year contract as well. Is that going to be renewed? Are certain events going to come back, etc.? So hopefully it'll all come out in the wash in the next few months. But it's a big season for snooker. And also we've got the Crucible issue as well. That's got to
Of
be
course.
resolved this season, surely, because 2027 is the last year of the contract, and that's 100 years. The World Championship, that's 50 years at the Crucible. So surely all these issues we will hear about this season. So it's a big season on and off the table.
Yeah. No, after snooker is in a decent position right now. Now, clearly, the viewing figures are not too shabby. Otherwise, Channel 5 would not take it.
Mm.
Prize money's going up. Fan engagement is higher than ever. Their social media channels are doing well. People are engaging with snooker content, and there are more and more fans. And I think it's a positive sign when some of the more established names, Mark Williams, Ronnie O'Sullivan, they are in the latter stages of their careers as they move on. And when they finally hang up the cue, whenever that may be, I think snooker will be in a healthy position. I'm not concerned about the future of snooker, which is a good place to be in. Michael, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you
Thank you
sharing
very
your
much.
opinions.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah,
No,
little chatter
always nice to
for
have
the
you on.
season.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a pleasure to come on.
And just as a reminder, where can people view your articles?
Yeah, so totallysnookered.com. We're also we've got quite a big sort of Facebook community as well. We've got a Facebook page, Totally Snookered. We're also on X and Blue Sky as well. So yeah, come along for the ride. It's all free to view on the website. So yeah, all your information, results, and everything will be there. And we've got a couple of ideas as well. We're sort of working with the tech team in terms of sort of live results and scores and stuff that hopefully we'll be able to launch in the next few months. So keep your eyes peeled.
Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's been a pleasure.